Hey, I'm Nick DiMatteo, and welcome to Music is Not a Genre's PODFAST. I'm going to get right into it. This is PODFAST. Oh, that is so sweet. Usually, PODFAST is so violent and aggressive, but this time it just kind of, you see, I mean, it's blocking my face, so it's kind of maybe passive-aggressive, but we can fix that, okay? So thank you for not hitting me in the face this time, at least. Hold on one second. Okay. All right, now we have restarted. This is PODFAST number 11. Thank you as always for watching and listening. I'm going to get right into it because it's a PODFAST. We don't want to mess around with the usual stuff. The title of this one is Tell Me How You Really Feel About Genres. So the reason I'm doing this is because I've gotten a lot of new listeners lately. I'm part of the Pantheon Podcast Network now, which, by the way, just recently signed on to be the official podcasters for Metallica. So that's kind of freaking awesome. And I'm really happy to be a part of the family. But it does mean I've gotten a bunch of new listeners. And hello out there, whether you're watching or listening, it is so wonderful to have you. So I thought I'd give a quick summary of what my podcast is, why it's called MxG, Music is Not a Genre. There's the hand gesture, sort of, and how I really feel about genres. And I also want to get how you feel about genres, because I know there are people out there who are very passionate about genres that they love, and there are people who are passionate about, not adhering to genres. And you'll see where my answer falls in terms of that. So if you are listening now, or better yet, if you're watching, I know two things about you. One is you love music more than the average person. There's a lot of programming out there for free or for pay or whatever. And if you're spending time with me, it's got to be because you love music. I mean, you could love me, and the humor, but I have a feeling it's more about the music, and that's totally fine. And second thing I know about you is that you are getting this for free. I don't charge for any of my episodes. Who does? I mean, podcasts are streaming. This streams where all podcasts stream. My YouTube channel, youtube.com/@musicisnotagenre, has all of the video versions of this, as well as so many others, over 600 videos there. So I know that you're getting this for free. And what I want to say about that is I love sharing. I always have. I love providing any kind of, that swear word content that could mean anything. But what it means for me is music and podcasting and all the things that are peripheral around that, graphic design. I have a t-shirt. If you go to nickdimatteo.com, you get to see and hear all of that stuff. Hit shop and you can check out what mugs and t-shirts I have and all of that. So I like to provide things for free, but this also takes time and effort and resources to produce. So whether you're a longtime fan, which I am so happy you're here, Patrick, I'm talking about you especially, or you're a newbie, which I know there are many of you, it's awesome to have you here. It's the conversation. I always say at the end of each episode, music, conversation, and connection, and I absolutely mean that. But I have to say that things are kind of getting crazy and they're getting a little heated up on many fronts, and they're getting a little critical, which means in order for me to continue what I'm doing, which, as I've said in my regular episodes, I've decided to make this a year-round endeavor instead of just a 40-week thing. I'll be doing programming almost every single week of the year, a couple weeks off here and there. In order to keep that up and to enhance everything I'm doing, research and the technical side of things and all of that, and to garner more listeners, I need resources, which means I need you, which means point blank, I need money. That's how this is done. So please take a moment to go to patreon.com/musicisnotagenre, patreon.com/musicisnotagenre, and try it out for free for a week. You get a whole week to figure out if you like this at all and are willing to contribute some amount. And if not, opt out, you're fine. If you hang on, you can go for as little as $5 a month. You can go as high as $50,000 a month. That's my favorite. I've got a t-shirt that says give me $50,000, and there's a reason for that. You have to check out the fun manifesto that I put out in 2022. But please think about supporting Music is Not a Genre. I really appreciate that. And my band recarea.bandcamp.com. So this genre thing, right? Why do I do this? First of all, you should know one thing, which is I love nuance and I love duality. Now, nuance it's important to me because there's a lack of it online. It's not that there's a lack of it. There is nuance online, but it's very hard to get people to pay attention to it. Things that are done quickly in memes and whatever else can't have nuance. They rarely do unless the person was clever enough to kind of pair a photo with a text that gives it some kind of contrasting, dual meaning or whatever it is. So I value being able to provide nuance and being able to hear nuance. So if you are coming at me and saying you dislike something or whatever, I'm not just going to take that at face value and be like, well, screw you. We disagree. I'm going to ask why, and we're going to have a conversation. The duality, that's just me. I mean, it's a yin yang thing. It's for some reason, it's always twos for me. So let's say a perfect example. If I left my glasses upstairs, I'm probably not going to go get them. I'll probably hang out. But if I left my glasses and my water upstairs, well, now I have enough of a reason to go up and do it. There's a two, always wanting things in twos can get you in a little bit of trouble here and there. But for the most part, it's kind of cool. And it's just how I work. And it's no less true for the name of this podcast. Why did I call it Music is Not a Genre? I've gone over the history of it, how I started a blog in 2016, how the following year I started recording new music for a big project that at the time I was calling Music is Not a Genre, how the two of them merged when I realized that wasn't a great name for the albums that I was putting out, that eventually that name became the name of the podcast, which I started in late 2019 and went, wide in 2020, 2021, really. And so that's where it came from. But the reason I called it that, again, there are two reasons, the duality. No one kind of music or artist should be confined to its genre limitations. And I've said that before, and that's why I say music is not a genre. No kind of music it's very rarely so purely one genre. Let's say that. And the second thing is music itself should not be separated from the rest of the world. And it isn't. Music is probably the one art that we all have in common. There are a lot of people who don't watch TV, maybe don't see a film, maybe they don't read, maybe they're not into dance or things like that. But you probably can't go a day without hearing some kind of music somewhere, even if it's a teeny little snippet of something. And the fact that music has infiltrated, it's been a part of society since before society existed, really, in many ways. I think it's important to always bring the real world into what we're talking about. And to not separate how music is interpreted, how it is absorbed, how it is created from the things that affect it in the world and the things that music affects. And so I called it that for those reasons, but I also called it that because I was frustrated. I had put out an album, a REC album in 2015, which is right there. I'm pointing to it. It's the yellowish one, the Sunshine Seminar. Look it up, REC, the Sunshine Seminar. It's to date, I believe, the most most streamed album of REC's so far. And it was doing fine, but I realized that REC itself is hard to classify. The music I do is hard to classify. And because of that, it's hard to market. So I got frustrated. And I realized there's a difference between marketing and creation, and if marketing is driving creation, that can really get you into trouble. Creation should drive marketing, but that is one of the hardest things to do, especially for a creative person who may not be strong on the business side. So, what I mean by that is music creators know they always get asked the question, what kind of music do you do? What's it sound like? And there, again, two. I'm going to be a lot of twos in this PODFAST. And this first answer to that is you should have an answer for it. So I reduced REC to electro power pop. The electro meaning electronic elements, could be fully electronic, partially electronic. Power meaning there's rock involved in there and funk and a hard driving beat sometimes, things like that. And pop because I try to make everything I do in some way accessible and to craft it in a way that is easy to digest, even though there may be bits of nutrition in there that you don't pick up right away that end up being the kind of staying power that the music has. You should have an answer. They talk about in business an elevator pitch, or give me your 15-second, give me your 30, give me your 1 minute. You should be able to answer all of those if you're creating music. It sucks, but it's true. But you should also have the right to then say, but that's not all it is. In fact, I'm not sure how to categorize it. The best way to categorize it is for you to listen to it and you tell me what you hear. Now, that's not business side, no, that doesn't work. But on the creative side, I think that's extremely important. Like I say, electro power pop, that's what rec is. But there's ambient and instrumental and progressive and hip hop and R&B and techno and all of these things that are thrown in there. And it's how I like it. And it's how I'm always going to do it. So as I'm kind of alluding to here, music creators have to be both an artist and a business person. That's just how it is. And the business isn't just this cut and dry thing where you're trying to make money from it. Yes, you are, but it's also connecting with fans. It's also creating a community around your music and all of that. And oddly enough, that's the whole reason genres were created to begin with. As the music industry took off early in the last century, businesses, companies had to figure out how to market it. And, they didn't always make great decisions, but the decisions always revolved around, well, we have to label it something. And those labels became what we know of today as genres. And it makes sense. And on that level, I'm going to get into why that's okay when I answer the question, tell me how I really feel about genres. That being said, that's a label. It shouldn't limit what we create or how we create. Put a label on something and somebody listens to it. If you listen to, I don't know, you say, oh, Ozzy Osbourne's heavy metal, and then you listen to the song Goodbye to Romance or something like that. I know it's a real throwback. If you didn't know the artist and didn't know the genre, you might listen to that and say that's just a power ballad, whatever. But it's on that great album and it's Ozzy Osbourne, so it gets classified as heavy metal. Just another example. Music, my music in particular, Rec's music, I make it easy to like. I make it easy to get into. I don't mess around. I do mess around, but I mess around in ways that are subversive, that don't take away from the picture of the whole, which is I give you a plate of food and it looks good to eat. And then you don't realize maybe until you start eating it that, oh my God, the flavor's amazing. And it's got all of these nutrients in there that make you want to come back for more. My fans tend to be people who either like my voice, meaning my actual physical voice, the way it sounds. I think for most people, that's a huge thing. If it's not instrumental music, you have to like the person's voice. If you're not a Cure fan, it may be because you don't like Robert Smith's voice, something like that. But they also like my voice in terms of the lyrics that I'm putting out and the way I create music, how I am expressing myself, that kind of, that definition of the word voice. But B, my fans also like all kinds of music. I know other bands who do one specific kind of music. In some ways that's easier and it's wonderful. It means that they're going to get fans who only like that kind of music, or maybe not only, but who particularly like that kind of music, among others. But I appeal to fans, Rec appeals to fans who remember that the radio, which was a device that people listened to back by the way, the FM dial and AM dial even would often have stations that would go everywhere on the map in terms of playing music. And that's how I grew up. And I did not stick to one kind of music listening or playing ever. And that's how I create music. So that's where my fans. And once I set myself free from only being power pop and having everything have to stick to that, which was never quite that sticky, but it was, stickier at the beginning of Rec. Then Rec was free to become what it was always meant to be, which is a representation of my world, of the world in my head and in my heart, that is music. That is the world itself. Again, music not separated from the world. This is how I create music. I mean, great. Programmatic music, you get an album with 10 songs and they all kick your face in. That's the mood you're in. That's perfect. I prefer an album that takes you through a journey and through different facets of existence, whether it's an EP or a 14, 20 song album, a double album, triple album that goes everywhere, because that's life to me and that's my experience. So how do I really feel about genres? And this is where I want you to be thinking, because I want to hear your answer too. Do I hate them? Because that's the title. Music is not a genre. Damn it. There's always a damn it in there, Well, duality again. Yes and no. And why do I hate them? Why do I not like them? Well, again, it's because of confinement, because people misinterpret a label as meaning a definition. So, this is where the world comes in, right? I am a man. I am a male. Now, you have a definition of what a male is or is quote unquote supposed to be. Some of that may apply to me. Some of it may not. There are other qualities I have that people might say, well, they're not traditionally male or whatever it is. And that's why we're going through all of this gender, pronouns and things like that today, because people are realizing more than ever that it's fine if you want to say I'm a he, him, or a she, they, or whatever it is. But even that, that shouldn't be interpreted as that's the definition of me. It's a shorthand. All genres and all labels are shorthands. And that's what gets me about them. It's like anything else. Technology is a tool. It's neither good nor evil. It's how you use it. Knowledge itself, same thing. Genres, labels, they're neither good nor evil. They're a tool. And if you use it to say, well, you said you're this, so that's all you can be, then that's your problem. That's not the genre's problem. But the fact that genres promote that kind of thinking is why I dislike them. It's the same with race. It's the same, again, with gender. It's the same with class. It's the same with ideology. If you say you are a progressive or a conservative, but then you have a belief that falls outside of that, there were people who looked down on you because they said, well, no, you said your ideology was this, so you have to stick to that. But that's a label. And that label shouldn't confine you from, going elsewhere that might go beyond what that label is. And on a purely artistic level, genres have deterred artists from exploring parts of themselves that they feel fall outside how they're supposed to sound, quote unquote. And that's a shame, because the artists who are the most iconic are the ones who never really gave that much thought, or did and said, screw it, and went everywhere anyway. I always talk about Bowie. I always talk about Prince. I always talk about the Beatles and so many others. And please tell me your artists who you feel jump from genre to genre. 70s, 80s, like Chicago is another one that I always talk about. It's also deterred fans from listening to new things, because as soon as they hear a label, if it's not in their wheelhouse, they say, I'm probably not going to like that. And that was partly by design. When genres were created by the marketing people and by the businesses, they targeted certain groups. So, for worse, I will say that there used to be something called race music. It was because it was targeted to African Americans, etc. And, that blew up to become so many other different things that are much better labeled, but still labeled. So if you're somebody who hears, a song is R&B and you're only into country, you might be missing out on something that you actually would love. And that fact that is a genre name is preventing you, mentally from going there. And so you don't even bother. So those are the reasons why I really dislike genres. And I'm sure there are others. But why do I like them? Okay, because they do serve that shorthand connective purpose. They give, it's a door. And this is a perfect example. The perfect way to describe it is that a genre name, a label, is a door. It's not the room itself. When you get into that room, there could be a whole bunch of things in there. Let's say there's a door to the bathroom. You expect there to be bathroom type things in that room, but then you get in there and it's got a bookshelf and it's got speakers where you can listen to music and all of these things. That's because why is that? Because the label, the genre, the name is just the door to get you in. And I like it for that reason, because if it's something that says to you, well, it's this kind of music or a subgenre with a lot of hyphens, well, it's wonderful. It helps you say, oh, okay, so I might be expecting this. I'll go into that door and I'll see what's there. It's a narrow entry into a much larger world. The other reason I kind of like genres, and this is my dirty secret, is if you've noticed, I like classification. I like organization. When I do my chronology, which look it up, listening to an artist's catalog, primary catalog in chronological order, I love that organization. I have numbers for everything. Death is Dumb 11, but it's also season 5, episode whatever. And I love all of that. And I listen to the History of English podcast. I interview Kevin Stroud on the host of that on this podcast here. And it's partly because the way he breaks down the English language, it shows both that duality. It shows how things are classified and how the relation is. There's an evolution to it. And the one-to-one relationship from one word to another, or from an old version of the word to a new version of the word, but it also shows it's living and it's dirty and it's malleable and there's connective tissue all over the place, from German to English to Latin to Greek and all of that stuff. And I love that. Like, I did a thing with the PODFAST that there are only 8 genres or whatever. And I said, well, I saw a list of 14,000 genres. That excited me. Now, I didn't read the whole list because that's crazy. But I already knew that there were ones missing on there, which means there's probably like 25,000 genres or whatever. But it's so cool that, whether you like genealogy or like Darwinian, evolution and all of that, that I like the idea of being able to say, well, country music and then rhythm and blues, and then it becomes rock and roll, and then rock and roll offshoots into this and that and the other. It's fun to do that. So that's sort of my dirty secret. And so I'm not somebody who really does hate the genres if they're used properly. I just don't like what they represent and the type of thinking they represent. And I think it's awesome to describe things like the characteristics of how screamo differs from emo. There's an example, but also know that when you say emo, what kind of emo do you mean? I did an emo episode and I talked about how there was proto-emo, and then there was the emo that I knew, which was like Sunny Day Real Estate, and then there was the emo of like Jimmy Eat World, and the emo, pop emo of things like Fall Out Boy and Blink-182 and all of that. That's something I love to explore, and it's partly why the word genre is in the name of my podcast. When I did Rec's The Weird Objective, which is here, boom, see my finger pointing to it, which was 4 EPs in an album back in 2020. Why did I say it was the weird objective? Well, it's because my objective was to make each album programmatic, which is not something I enjoy doing. And I wanted to challenge myself to do that, to say, well, what's that like? How will that come out? And I wanted to set aside the usual rec amalgam and dive headlong into exploring genres to their fullest, or as full as I can do it. So one was kind of ambient lo-fi, and one was kind of a harder dark techno, and one was straight ahead rock and pop rock, and one was R&B and hip hop and dance and all the stuff that falls in there, and then the other one was more of a regular rec album. I haven't done that, and I don't mind that, because I'd rather make a Rec song that includes elements of all of those things in the one song, which is how Rec's new album, which is coming out soon, is going to be. I'm going to release some singles this year, and the album probably early next year. And at the end of this episode, you get snippets of some of the songs on that album, which if you're on patreon.com/musicisnotagenre, you get the full songs. As such as they are now. They may change, they will be mixed and mastered and all of that stuff. But I wanted the weird objective to be this thing that I use to say, well, how far can I go in that direction without trying to make it into a rec thing, even though it falls under the rec umbrella. That's why I made up those fake band names to go with each album, to say, well, this was a collaboration with this particular band, that doesn't really exist because the band name suggested the type of music that I was going for, right? But other than that, and again, certainly with the new album, my MO is to mix it up, is to let anything come in that comes in. I'm not the person who says, well, I'm making this, hard rock song, but all of a sudden I hear this weird keyboard or I hear some other, thing. And that can't go in there because that's not the type of song it is. Oh, no. If I'm hearing it, it needs to go in there, and it may take part of it out or whatever, but that's how I like to make music. And on the sampler at the end of this episode, you're going to hear, it's a quick sampler, it's like 2 or 3 minutes. You're going to hear electropop. You're going to hear kind of an easy listening retro feel thing. You're going to hear like a grunge emo power pop. On the album itself, you're going to get also techno and hip hop and experimental, progressive and folk and lo-fi ambient and more. And that's a rec album. And it's probably the reckiest rec album that's ever been made because the Weird Objective, in a weird way, freed me from having to ever be one thing. So you get why I have this duality, why I have this push-pull of being a fan of genres, but not wanting to be confined by them, as again, we should feel with gender and all of that stuff. If this helps you understand where I'm coming from, and it's PODFAST, so this is a very quick episode compared to my other episodes. If this helps you understand, then you're a true Music Is Not a Genre fan. And thank you for sticking with me. I'm coming up on my 200th episode, if you count in a certain way. And so I'm going to celebrate that soon. And I hope you've been listening to as many of them as possible and will continue to listen. If what I have said confuses you or turns you off, then this may not be for you. Or it may be exactly what you need. It may be that thing that challenges you to think about music and the world, but particularly music, in a different way. And so I hope that excites you to stick with the PODFAST and Music Is Not a Genre and all of that stuff, and me. And so to end every episode, almost every episode, I feature a song. And again, this song that I'm featuring is a sampler from REC's upcoming album. I don't think any of these will be released as a single. Well, one of them might be released as a single this year. I'm not sure. But these represent the 6th, 7th, and 8th songs on the album. I've already sequenced the album even before I finished recording, which is something I've never done, and I love it. And those songs are called Wait, Too Rough, Rhythm 77, and Porch Step. And again, people on patreon.com/music is not a genre get to hear all of those songs in their entirety, as well as the first 5 songs in their entirety. I have let them hear all 8 songs. I've let them see a copy of the cover as it stands now and the name of the album. They're the only ones who know it. So please stick around, listen to the sampler, go to patreon.com/music is not a genre. Please help support this podcast because I want to be able to continue doing it. I really enjoy it, but I can only do it if I can support it. And that's where you come in. And as always, thank you for watching and listening. My objectives here are music, conversation, and connection. I appreciate you sticking with me with this. I'm going to say it real quick so that it can do what it wants because it's being very gentle today. PODFAST. And yeah, I don't mind that it's over my face right now because we're all done here. Thanks a lot, and I'll talk to you next week.
Making plans to make plans that'll probably make a mess. Gonna give it up and go back to bed. Attitude at the time, I got nothing much to confess. And I'm stuck like that, so inside my head.